Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's intentional hiking event. I'm pleased to have two guests on today, Jessica Carrillo Alatorre, and she is the executive director of OutGrown, thru-hiker, and thru-hiker Mandy Purple Rain Bland, who founded the company Purple Rain Adventure Skirts. So they're both here to talk about the importance of getting babies and children outside. So a little bit more about OutGrown. This organization was created to empower families with babies and young children to step outside and enjoy the physical and mental benefits of growing up in nature. Jessica is the mother of two girls and is committed to building a future where the outdoors is the safe, accessible space for all families to enjoy, regardless of their race, gender, ability, socioeconomic status, orientation, or religion. Mandy, or Purple Rain, her trail name, is a thru-hiker who conceived of the perfect hiking skirt while hiking the Appalachian Trail. This invention led her to start the company Purple Rain Adventure Skirts, and in 2022, she hiked 1,200 miles of the PCT with her then 5-year-old son, with both of them wearing Purple Rain Adventure Skirts, of course. So I am your host, Renee Shearer-Patrick, and I am an addicted long-distance hiker who discovered the amazing and empowering feeling of spending extended time in nature 22 years ago with my first thru hike of the Appalachian Trail. I created this event series to help myself and others in the hiking community like you develop a culture of thoughtfulness and intention about the time we spend outside on trails. So thank you for being here. A couple of housekeeping items. Please use the chat throughout the event. Share any reactions or comments and anything you have in the chat as we go. And then please keep your video on or plan to turn it on, at least during the conversation portion of the event. I think this series is as much about building community as it is learning more about the specific topic that we're here to talk about. And seeing each other will help in building those connections. I also want to thank Jess, who's providing back-end support today and is on an amazing road trip in Canada right now. So let's get started with our event flow for today. So first, I'll give an introduction, and then we're going to hear separately from Mandy and from Jessica, then Mandy, and we'll have time for questions if you have them. And then we're going to get into the gear giveaway where we have a Purple Rain Adventure skirt for a little hiker or a big hiker. And then we'll get into the conversation for about 15 minutes and then we'll wrap up. So all in all, it'll be about an hour to an hour and a half. So for those of you joining for the first time, each intentional hiking event is focused on one of the following themes: do, learn, create, be, and a regional focus. This one is a be event focused on the benefits of getting babies and children outside. I'm bringing you all together through these events because I believe that we are a powerful force for change. Beyond developing an intentional hiking practice in our own personal trail experiences, I think the impacts and effects of our actions can help influence the world around us. Now I have a couple questions for you. Let's see a raise of hands, either real or emoji hands. How many of you spent a lot of time outside when you were a baby or a child? Looks like a lot of you. And how many of you think, again, raise your hand, that made a positive impact on who you are as an adult today? Great. And now, how many of you have young children and want to be intentional about spending time with them outside? Perfect. And please share in the chat, what barriers or logistics are you encountering in your attempts to make this happen? So kind of, you want to spend more time with your kids outside. Have there been any things that are preventing you or providing a struggle in doing so? Because I think both of our speakers here today will help maybe address some of that, but just to hear, who we have here and what you're encountering. So Please feel free to chime in. I'll give you just a minute. So I'm not a parent myself, so I can only imagine some of the challenges that one might face when deciding how and when to take young children outside. But I can speak from experience about the benefits I received by spending most of my childhood outside. I grew up in a rural part of central Wisconsin during the 80s. I had 3 younger brothers, and my parents often sent us outside to play. Our house was surrounded by woods and cornfields, so we had a relatively open and safe area to explore, roam, and spend especially the long summer days outside. Because I was the oldest of 4 and the only girl, I often tried to find places I could escape my younger brother energy. So I would often climb a tree with a book to get away. But other days, my brothers and I would build tree houses or forts in the woods or explore the creek in our backyard. It was a blissful way to grow up, and I am certain it paved the way for the person I've become today. I learned to be comfortable outside, learned to be self-reliant, and how to entertain myself. There was always something interesting or curious to do outside, and those are qualities that I value in myself today: the ability to be comfortable, self-reliant, and find nature interesting. So what's really interesting though about this whole thing was that we didn't hike or camp. My folks did not like to camp, so we spent very or no time outside sleeping or hiking outside of our neighborhood, which I think is fascinating, especially because it's become such a pivotal part of my life today. So even though I didn't discover my love of hiking till I was in my 20s, I credit my extended time outside as a kid in nature as one of the important qualities that has contributed to my hiking life. Again, to be comfortable outside. I saw the world outside of my house as an extension of my home and continue to feel that and experience that today. I fully believe that the more time babies and kids spend in nature, they too will continue to value that time as they grow older, apply the lessons that they learn to their lives as adults. So I know Jessica and Mandy have more to say on the topic, and I'm excited for them to share some of their experiences with you here today. So with that, we'll start with a short presentation from Jessica, followed by a few minutes of Q&A before we turn to learn more about Mandy and her 1,200-mile hike on the Pacific Crest Trail with her 5-year-old son, Sunny. So Jessica, I will turn it over to you. Let's hear more about OutGrown and the work you're doing.
All right, thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you for letting me join and share a little bit more. I am going to share my screen here. Should be in full screen for everybody now, right? All right, so yeah, I'm Jessica, and as Renee said, I have 2 little girls. They are 10 and 7, and they have been going outside with me since I was pregnant with them. I'm the executive director of OutGrown. We were formerly Hike It Baby. We rebranded last summer, but it started as an organization that was just trying to help parents find some opportunities to connect and go outside together and get kind of support as new parents. And it made a huge difference in my life because it was, I had moved to Portland. It was a completely new town for me. I didn't have a lot of people that I knew. I was pregnant. I was reaching out to like meetup groups and trying to make new friends and being told, oh, Well, we're just for parents, so you can join once you've had your baby, but not before then. And for anyone who has kids, you know that first few months when you have a newborn, it's like impossible to do anything other than make sure that you and that newborn are making it through each day. So, um, when I started going to my new mom group through the hospital and heard about Hike It Baby, I was really excited and got to start going outside. And now it's 10 years later, and all of the women I met during that time are still really close friends, and we still help each other out and do things together. So it made a huge difference just from a friendship standpoint, but then also learning a lot of skills, just like what carriers to use and how to feed my baby while I was out and about in a carrier was an extremely liberating experience, because if you have fed an infant, you know that there's often a lot of time spent just sitting and trying to get them to eat. And then it feels like you finish and you turn right around and you have to start all over again. So being able to do that while up and around and walking made a huge difference for just my mood and feeling like I was getting something accomplished and not just hanging out in a nursing chair all day. Um, so just a little bit more about Outgrown. We are bridging the baby nature gap and trying to make it possible for every family to build a lasting relationship with nature as a way to improve mental and physical health, reduce adverse childhood experiences, and introduce early environmental awareness from birth. Our programs help future generations grow into healthy, happy people who work to protect the natural wonders of this planet we are all part of. We are committed to building a future where the outdoors is a welcoming, accessible space for all families to enjoy, regardless of their identity or ability. And in just over a decade of operations, our community led approach has touched the lives of over 280,000 families in 300 communities across North America. And our dedicated volunteers have hosted thousands of outdoor gatherings, providing a safe and supportive haven for new parents. So it's definitely something that is popular and much needed for parents to have. One of the questions we get is, why should we start with young families, and what do we mean when we say the baby nature gap? What we have noticed is there is not a lot of support to encourage people to get outside with infants and toddlers. Often you'll see programming maybe for preschool kids. You might see it for school age kids, and it gets more and more frequent as kids get older that there are different opportunities for them. But we feel like this is kind of a really big missed opportunity, because from birth to 3, the infant brain is making over 1 million new neuronal connections per second. So that's an amazing amount of opportunity to shape the architecture of the infant brain. And then also the caregivers, the adults who are taking care of them, are undergoing transformations in their own brains that make them open to new habits and new ideas. So it's this really cool opportunity time. And the other thing that we think about is that most of our habits and our beliefs and just kind of the ways that we approach life, our values are set by the age of 7. So if you think about that, we're not starting things until kids are 4 or 5, 6 and 7 to introduce them to nature. We're missing this big opportunity where we can really bake in um, that connection and help them feel connected. We also see that because we're serving families, so the adult and the child, the extended family, the siblings, everybody's welcome to come to our programming. We're giving them that opportunity to kind of fall in love with nature and build that relationship. A lot of families have a severed relationship for all kinds of reasons, from historical racism and different experiences to just never having had that opportunity before. And so helping them reconnect to that and build that love so that they will want to take care of nature in the future and spend time outside. So to do this, we have three different programs. We start with Turn the Blues Green, which is connecting with families as soon as they have had their infant to let them know that it is both okay and safe for them to go outside with a little one. And it's good for the adult, it's good for the baby, and really just kind of introduce that concept of fresh air and friendship as a way to kind of overcome some of the baby blues feelings that most families experience. We also have Bring It Outside, which is focusing more on culturally relevant workshops and resources, building community for families that aren't always included in the conversation and who we see going outside, and working with them to identify, is it language barriers? Is it, transportation barriers? Is it, cost of getting things? And just kind of helping figure out solutions so that we can make it easier. And then our other program, which is kind of our core and the root of who we are and how we came to be, is Hike It Baby. And that's community-led outdoor events for families. Um, and that's focused on anyone can host an event. And we have like a family trail guide resource. So it's all just about creating that community space and letting families figure out the best ways that they want to explore the outdoors together. I just want to talk a little bit more about Turn the Blues Green and just how frequent the baby blues and postpartum depression are. So baby blues is something that up to 80% of birthing parents experience, and they usually experience it for several weeks after giving birth. Postpartum depression is a more significant set of symptoms and usually needs a medical provider to kind of diagnose and help treat it. It's experienced by 15% of birthing parents. Both of these things are also experienced by partners. So it's not just necessarily moms who go through this. And postpartum depression is the most common complication for birthing parents right after giving birth. So this is a frequent thing that we see, and we don't really address as much as we need to. And there's some simple solutions that help people overcome these feelings. And I think a lot of us have seen the benefits of just spending time outside. So connecting with others who understand, getting exercise, sunshine, having a support system, and even just 15 minutes outside lowers blood pressure, decreases stress, strengthens relationships, and improves mood. So, like I said, very simple ways to kind of overcome those feelings, but a lot of people don't know that or have a lot of fear about how to do that. And so we offer support programs and just kind of start with the basics and kind of help make that habit something that feels manageable for new parents. And then our Bring It Outside program is all about, like I said, the culturally relevant workshops and resources. We partner with different community organizations. So in Portland, Oregon, we have a relationship with the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organizations, Greater Middle Eastern Center, where we're like working with Afghan new arrival families who don't have the same connection to going outside that we do if we've grown up in the Pacific Northwest. And so just helping them navigate that the outdoors is a resource. These are families that are often coming and living in transitional housing, which is like hotel rooms for 3 or 4 months at a time. And those are larger families typically. So it can start to feel really cooped up really quickly, but also because they're going through so much transition, it's kind of traumatic to leave what you consider your home or your safe space. So just helping them build community and connection. And that's just one example of one community that we work with to kind of make this happen. We do different things where we have just basic resources that talk about just like, what do you wear when you go outside? And what does it mean to pick a place that is appropriate for kids to go out, little ones? And where are those places, right? And explore them together. And we also network with different organizations like Head Start and Moms of Preschoolers and different community support systems and try to bring them all in one place when we're doing some of our events so that a family can see like, oh, there are all these resources. I don't have to go out to like a bunch of different places to navigate this. I can meet these people in one place and get some connections. And then these are just a little bit about the reach of our Bring It Outside program so far. We have gear libraries, and we've translated things into Spanish and Arabic. And a lot of community partnership goes into this, which is really fun to see that there are so many different kinds of organizations interested in supporting this work. And then our Hike It Baby platform, like I was saying, is just a lot of community-led events and our family trail guide and a community forum, and that all lives within our website. And all of these resources are completely free for families to access. So it gives them just a simple place to go and start asking questions and making the connections and relationships that they need to go outside. And then the last thing I just wanted to share is we also do virtual seasonal events that we encourage families to go outside. And the one that we're doing right now is the 10 Park Challenge. So we're encouraging families to visit 10 parks over the next 10 weeks of the summer and have some fun outside. And also, if they can, commit to cleaning up 10 gallons of trash from the parks that they're visiting. We're super open in what it means to go to a park. It can be your local neighborhood park, it can be state or national parks, whatever it is, just getting outside and exploring and having some more fun. And then also, as they're doing that exploration, to kind of think about like how easy or difficult was it to get to those parks, and what can we do as families to advocate for more green space and more access at a local level so that we can have these resources available for families all the time. Are there any questions?
Great. Thank you, Jessica. I'm curious, since the time you've been working in this program, like what makes you, now that your girls are older too, what
Mhm.
still gets you excited and really hopeful about this programming and the families you work with?
Yeah, I think it's really cool just to see that there's a lot of connection and support that happens. We're in communities all across the United States, and just to see the different ways that people show up, like if there's a natural disaster happening, um, oftentimes the Hike It Baby community that was already there is there and responding to each other. They're able to put out information to the whole network of our groups to say like, hey, we need this supply. And all of a sudden, people will be sending stuff to help support. So it's community at a local level and also at a national level. And that's really fun and powerful to see happening.
And I imagine when you have families with children of different ages, like if the older children spent time outside, do they sort of help get the younger, newer kids and babies outside? Because they're, they've been there and they're like, come on, let's go out to the park.
Yeah, definitely. The older kids always love to be the leader on the trail and be able to like tell everyone where we should go. And it's really fun to see them like start go from like, oh, we're gonna like when they're toddlers, often they don't want to go very far, so they'll want to sit and just kind of play in the grass or the gravel or wherever. And you don't usually get a lot of mileage, but as they get a little bit older, they're much more keen to explore and see what's around the next corner and just be able to kind of lead that adventure and see those skills develop is fun.
Nice. Does anyone out there have any questions? And you're free to come off mute or type them into the chat if there's anything or comments. I know Beth said she'd be checking out the resources. Yes, Mary.
Yeah, I was wondering, are you, Jessica, are you the one that's the contact for this organization in case we want to make a link with an organization that your stuff would be useful for?
Yes, please feel
Okay.
free to connect and I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
because I work with an organization called the Bigfoot Trail Alliance, and one of their main programs is getting families out to do trail maintenance on the trail. And they really emphasize people having kids, and they allow for kids, in the way that they implement it and stuff like that. So you'd be a good contact for
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
So
I love
yeah.
that because I feel like there's a lot of times you see trail cleanups and people are like, "Oh, you're gonna bring little ones?" I don't know, but we really feel like it is good for them to see that and be an active part of it from an early age. It's never too young to start talking about those things and showing our kids how we do it.
I know. I think that one of the formative things in my life was when I was 5 years old and my parents went to Yosemite for the first time and we camped. And I was actually, my father actually hiked, and we were hiking up this trail. And I saw a young woman on the trail with braids, but she was by herself and she was hiking. And I go, I want to be that woman, So, I want to keep doing this. So, yeah, it was really formative, going to Yosemite. We went there every year camping. So,
Yeah, it's a great spot.
What I thought was interesting too is like you didn't belong to the parents getting outside until you had a kid. Like as being pregnant, it's like come back once you've given birth. I think that shows, you're providing a really important resource for those who are even just pregnant and like thinking about this. I think that's really great. Great. Well, thank you so much. Let's talk to Mandy and hear more about like that 5-year-old, a few years old, and what it's like to hike long distance. So Mandy, thank you for sharing your experiences with Sunny on the PCT. Let's start at the beginning. Where did the idea of hiking a long section of the PCT with your 5-year-old come from?
It was actually rather selfish. I think it was something that I wanted to do. So the year I turned 30, I, quit my job and I flew cross country and I hiked the AT. Very formative time for me. And I always had it in my head that, when I turn 40, like I'll do the PCT. This will just like be my progression of how I do these long trails. And then ended up starting a family and thinking about, oh, well, my kid will be 5 turning 6, that year that I turned 40. What would that look like if we were to do that? And Ryan and I kind of just started talking about that. He had given me his blessing to go hike the PCT if I felt like that's something I needed to do. Which was incredible, but then being away from my son for that long, as being a 5-year-old, that's a significant part of his life to be gone for 5 or 6 months. So that just kind of slowly formed into this conversation, like, well, what if dad and Sonny came with, at least like started it together. And then whenever kiddo wanted to get off, they could run support for me, at least like through Southern California. We have family in Southern California, so it'd be kind of an easy jumping off place for them to come out and support me along the way. So we just kind of decided to give it a try and see what it was like. I mean, I have in my notes here, like I didn't even like buy the map for the trail until we got to Julian, it wasn't this like, we're hiking to Canada and we're gonna make it. It was very much like, let's just try it and see what happens.
And what was Sunny's reaction to this idea of we're gonna go backpacking? It sounds like you didn't say for 2,000 miles or for X amount of time. Like, was he excited? What was his reaction?
Yeah, I think that he really was. I mean, I think as the age he was, it was hard for him to really conceptualize what hiking to Canada was, or this idea of like distance. I think when we did get to Julian, he was like, "Is this Canada?" Like, not quite, buddy. But I also think it was this age of innocence for him that he just wanted to do what mom and dad were doing. I don't think he knew that he could say no, or didn't like didn't know that there were options in that. And he was just kind of a get along kid, and it was something that we were going to do. So of course he was on board for it.
And so what did the preparation look like, especially gear, getting him what he needed, but also yourself, you hiked the AT, but now to do this with your child, what was the preparation like?
I mean, I like to think that we were kind of preparing for it our whole lives. You know, it was in his DNA. Like I was a thru hiker. Ryan really jumped on board with hiking. I mean, Sonny's been going to PCT days since he was a baby. So he's been like in this culture of thru hiking for a very long time. Yeah, I mean, gear was a huge part of it. Very much like kind of DIYers and minimalists just by our very nature. So we didn't want to go overboard with it, but definitely knew that we needed to have a few things set in. Um, so I guess the biggest thing was like the year before. So when he was 4, we did a 40-mile section near where we live in Southern Oregon. And that kind of was just like, well, we can do that. I wanted to like introduce this idea of thru hiking to him. And he rocked that out. He was doing like 11 miles in a day when he was 4. So I knew that he could do this. He's been going to an outdoor preschool since he started at 4, you know. So he was very much accustomed to being in the outdoors. And then, yeah, I guess when it came down to gear, we are, you know, I'm fortunate to be in the outdoor community of knowing people that have gear that they can help us out with. So 6 Moon Designs was really generous with like giving us the Lunar Duo tent, like a 2+ person, and it's actually like really roomy, and the 3 of us fit in there very well. We just had some like closed foam cell pads, and we just like lined them up right next to each other. It took a while to get used to, you know, that the style of sleep in, but it actually became really like cozy after a little while. And I think more than anything, it was just part of like our family values, you know, that this is just like, this is what we do as a family. So naturally we're gonna like attempt a thru hike when you're young.
Nice. So once you got out there, did anything surprise you about him on trail or your time together?
I think we were both really surprised with how much he thrived. That even given the adverse conditions, as I was preparing for this and kind of looking through my notes and going through my journal of what it was, we were caught in this windstorm on San Jacinto, like just out of Idlewild, what started as this like beautiful day. We're on the ridge and it was gorgeous. And then all of a sudden these like gale force winds like picked up on us. And like bedtime was just out there cheering. He's just like, we can do this. Come on, guys. And he was just like cheering us along the whole way. I think it was like the more adverse the conditions, the more he thrived in it. Which is what I needed, like as a mom, to think that I wasn't making some really poor choices with taking my kid out in these conditions. Let's see, and I think probably from his time outside, like just how intuitive he became with even just like following trail, you know, he knew. I was even like looking through pictures and stuff, and I had this video of him like in front of me, like toddling along and walking, and like kind of went off. And he was like, oh, nope, that's not trail. And then like turned and followed it the other way. And I was like, oh, I think that's my kiddo, you know, he really just like took to it very well. And I think we're also just surprised at how much we all really enjoyed it. You know, I think once we were able to drop in and be in the present with it, realized what an amazing feat of like what we were doing, and how impactful it would be for all of us for the rest of our lives.
So you mentioned bedtime. So that's his trail name. How did he get the trail name Bedtime?
We gave it to him the summer before when we did that 40-mile stretch. I think it was like the first morning on trail. We'd hiked in, stayed the night, and then the next morning we were leaving, you know, 8 a.m. we're getting on trail, and we had hiked like maybe like 20 or 30 feet down the trail, and he just like, he laid down. He's like, is it bedtime? I'm tired. And we're like, all right, bedtime. And then he kind of lived up to it. I think like kids, again, like their intuitive nature, like we'd take breaks and he would just lay down, you know, like he knew that he needed to take a break. Like he would take a nap like anywhere at any time.
So what about anything you saw like changes in him throughout the time you're on trail, like any confidence building or how he dealt with challenges? It sounds like he was the cheerleader of the family.
Yeah.
And he got you going, but anything else notable?
It was really seeing his like developmental growth on trail, how like self-directed with his own learning he became. And I think that has to do like with his age of being 5 years old at the time. He hiked with a journal. You know, we all kind of have a journal that we write in, and he just started like writing down letters. You know, he knew some basic letters and stuff from being in preschool. But I think time on trail gave him time to like we all have just nothing but a bunch of thoughts all the time when we're hiking all day. He had time to like really conceptualize all of that. So we just have these breaks and he would just like write letters and then just try to sound them out and read them. He would like write letters to his trail friends that he made. So to just see him really embrace what through hiking was, and you know, the really generous hikers that were out there that like took a kinship to us and like really liked bedtime, and his development of those kind of relationships to go more like outside of his family unit, and really to appreciate the whole community that was out there. Yeah, I think he had a lot of really big leaps in his like social development, and him, you know, teaching himself how to count in Spanish. You know, what else do you have to do when you're hiking along? Like, let's just count, and why not try it in Spanish too? Like, yeah, let's do that. You know.
Nice. So what about reentry? I know for a lot of us adults, reentry is hard, like from trail life to back to, you know, the daily routines. What was that like for him?
Again, we didn't have too many issues with that. I mean, it was a little bit different for us. So whenever we decided that it was best for bedtime to go home, and he wanted to, him and dad went home and I continued to hike on. So there was this like severing of our family to the extent. And they went home and he was just like excited to see his friends again. And everyone, whenever he got back to town, was like, "Oh my gosh, tell me about your trip. You know, I want to hear about this. You're amazing." And he's like, "Can't we just like play tag or like do Legos?" You know, like I don't want to talk about this. It's not that big of a deal. Like I'm home now. Um, but it was really hard, I think, for us as a family unit to be separated like that. And I had tried to hike on, ended up getting close out from fires, and ended up going home, which was probably for the best for all of us. But then right when I was home, you know, he said the sweetest thing of, "I miss trail." So naturally we went out to the Oregon Coast Trail and hiked a section out there. It's like, I'm gonna really jump on this like missing trail. And it might have just been the snacks. I don't know. He might have just been snacks. But we were like, okay, let's go do the coast. And he loved it. I mean, the coast is just like so much of a different hike and so much more engaging. And for him to like, he loves the beach, you know, for him to like play with the seaweed and find sand dollars, and to have that as kind of a different approach to through hiking versus what we had just done for 4 months on the PCT. It was cool to kind of show him like all the different ways that through hiking can be.
And when I saw you recently, you mentioned that he's not that interested in hiking or camping now. So this is 2 years later, he's 7, almost 8. Like, what can you talk a little bit more about his attitude and reaction towards spending out time now?
He still loves being outside. That's still his go-to place, like where his mind, I think, is really expanded the most. But he does have a block to hiking. And more than anything, I really think it's an age thing for him. And it's like, oh, mom and dad are really into this, so I'm gonna not like it. Yeah, he wants to be defiant, and he can be. You know, I embrace that for him. He let's see. And I think also for him, hiking is kind of like old news, you know, like, oh, I've done that, you know, he wants to do kind of like bigger things, you know, so we've gotten into like surfing, you know, when we're doing rock climbing and getting to skiing and stuff in the winter. Like he still has this drive to be outdoors and to try new things. But hiking's like, meh, it's not as like engaging for him. He's a young boy with just like energy that's out of control. So he kind of needs to have something else to keep up with that. But it's still, like I said, like part of our family values. Like we do go camping a lot. We try to do it probably more so with friends. It's a lot more engaging for him. And he and I, we hike once a week. It's for Fridays. We go hiking. And he does, he fights me on it, but then once we're out there, he's skipping down trail and he's like, oh mom, I love it. I love being out here. So you just kind of have to play the game of, you know, the kid mentality of it.
Right, right. So I know there's some newer parents out here, maybe aspire to do some longer hikes with their kids. Do you have any tips or suggestions to share on hiking with a young child?
Um, it was a learning curve for us, but once we embrace it, it's like, and of course it makes sense. It's prioritizing your child's experience, you know, that it's not, it wasn't our hike, it was his hike. And once we kind of like settled into that, you know, it wasn't about like crushing miles and going out there and like seeing how much we could do. The concept of just like dropping in and being more present as kids do. So yeah, if they want to stop and like play in the grass or play with the rocks, like just, you know, stopping to smell the roses with them as much as possible. I think working on your own confidence in the outdoors, and that really helped. Our experience is that Ryan and I are confident hikers. You know, we knew what we were doing. It was never kind of this question of feeling uncomfortable in the outdoors. Like, yes, some inclement weather and some things that came about, but you know, kids feed off of your energy. So the more confident you can be in the outdoors and show that confidence to your kiddo, they're gonna follow that as well. Um, and for us also, it was like, I think it's good for kids to know that we can do hard things. And I like to present these challenges and hardships to my kiddo to show perseverance without having it to be like rooted in trauma or something, you know, so you can present these hardships for kids of things that you have to work through and challenges and work through it as a family. I think is one of the most like profound things that you can show your kiddo.
Nice. I'm going to open up to y'all. Do you have any questions? Again, you can come off mute or type in the chat. I think it's really impressive, Mandy. Oh, Jack, go ahead.
First of all, thank you both, Jessica and Mandy. So new dad, I've got a 9-month-old. I'm excited about summer, realistic about it. You know, we're going to go car camping, maybe a little bit of backpacking, and then hopefully more over the coming years. So Mandy, you talked about inclement weather and like, you know, as a competent hiker, it's also sort of one of my concerns. It's really easy to go camping and backpacking when it's blue skies, but it's sometimes just stinks. Last week on a hike, we came back with 100 ticks. And I worry about like also bringing a baby into like the torrential downpours or mosquito hell or whatever. And I know that like you know, as you said, meeting challenge is a worthwhile thing. But can you talk to me about like when it really stinks and you got a kid along?
Yeah, those all sound like really miserable experiences that I don't want for myself, like let alone. The bugs are really bad. I mean, we hit some really awful sections through Yosemite with that. And I mean, I guess with a 9-month-old, you know, you're carrying her, so you just keep going. But for us, a lot of it was just to stop. You know, we just stopped to set up the tent, and it wasn't pleasant. But we couldn't stop to like take breaks and have snacks or anything either. We just kind of had to fight through it and get to where we were going. It's not pleasant, but I don't think it's pleasant like as an adult either. And it really takes you like putting on your game face to get through it. And I guess that's the concept of like with through hiking is that you do just like get through, you know, versus just a backpacking trip or something for the weekend. And being as prepared as possible, you know, I know that you are. We have a harrowing tale of getting caught in a blizzard on Bishop Pass as we were trying to get through the Sierra. And that was the one time that it really, really frightened me. We came across like snowfields that we couldn't tell where the trail was going. So dad would like go ahead and find trail and then come back and get us, and we would hike through it together. So always like staying together as a family unit and making sure that we stayed strong with that. You know, bedtime was like crying on his way down the mountain, and I just held his hand and I just kept popping Skittles in his mouth as we were like going down the mountain. And it wasn't until we got over on the other side, like safely to the trailhead, did I like break down. And that was my moment. Like once we knew we were safe, like I allowed myself to break down on it. But I think that's just believing in yourself and feeling really competent about it and knowing when to call it though too. You know, is it better if we push forward, or is it better if we go back, or is it better if we just like post up right here and put up the tent and call it good?
So another question, gear is expensive and it's this huge ecosystem, and like here I am, like, okay, I need a sleeping bag for my baby, a setup, and gosh, it might be used for like 1 month, and maybe I'll be able to borrow or get used or whatever. I'm just kind of like bummed about the prospect of, you know, it's different when you're 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, you know, 4 onwards, maybe they're in quilts or traditional sleeping bags, or maybe it's 3 years old onwards. But I don't know. Any advice on sleeping with for the first 3 years and controlling costs and weight and car camping and backpacking?
Yeah, no, that's a very real issue. We threw down on a really nice like double sleeping pad, the X Pad, and I think maybe it was like 2 pounds, which seemed really heavy, but I was like, by the time we get 3 separate sleeping pads, and this is when we were doing, you know, like weekend trips and more base camping along the line. So we got a really nice sleeping pad. We co-slept as a family, so that naturally transitioned over to the tent for us. So he was like literally inside our sleeping bag. Right? We had quilts, you know, so we would do just kind of huddled him in the quilt. For the PCT, and he even still uses it now. Like I did, I got one of those like down throws from Costco, and I sewed it into a quilt for him. So that's what, when he was ready to start using his own, that's what he used. For the most part, for the tents, we just kept to our 2-person tent and just kind of crammed him in there with us. Like, you know, it's not comfortable and you're not going to sleep great.
I have a very big dog as well, so all 2-person is not going to work, and most three people won't work anymore. So
you're entering into this world where they don't, you know, what is a 3-person backpacking tent? You know, there aren't a lot of brands that are making this stuff because it's such a small population of us that are actually trying to do something like this. You know, we would divide up the weight a lot. So Ryan would take the rain fly and I would take the other part of the tent. And that's kind of how we carried it that way too. You know, it's a sufferfest.
It'll be great.
I wonder if I can ask Beth. Beth, do you have, you know, you're out there a lot. Do you have any gear recommendations with you and Lupin?
No, like figuring it out. We definitely, my daughter's almost 2, she's 2 in July. So like a similar timeline of last year was, she was much younger when we were outdoors, and we actually just stuck to our car camping. We thought we were going to backpack, and then we realized we weren't ready. And kind of at that point too, when we're just doing day trips, thinking about adverse conditions, it was just like, we can go out for a day hike and come back to our warm indoor space. So finding like the right balance for us of what it was worth it. But for sleeping, I just bought a 6-person tent for car camping because it was the same price as a 4-person on a Memorial Day sale, and we took it out and it was amazing. The hard part we're having right now is putting her to bed because she just wants to like run around the tent, and so just letting her do that. We got a double pad this year. I'm second that idea that we can use hopefully backpacking and car camping, because she generally like wants to sleep on me when we're camping. Even with this giant tent, we tried bringing like a small camping play, but she wasn't having it. So I think just like trying to borrow stuff and see what works for you, or you know, if you find a deal, and then kind of like developing your system based on what you find works. But yeah, I just got her a sleeping bag that she fits in because I found one used locally that has arms. Before, she would just kind of sleep with me. I still have a hard time, especially when it's warm when she goes to bed and then she gets cold in the middle of the night. I haven't found a good solution for that because she's too sweaty if we put her down in her bag, but then she wakes up and takes a while to warm up. So I think it gets easier as they get older. It's
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
and their temperature regulation is, different. So, yeah, no like one size fits all solutions, but there's a lot of options. So.
Which specific tent did you buy?
I bought a Marmot Limestone 6.
I
Which
looked
was
at that.
really just, well, I was looking at a few and then that country had a good sale on it. Yeah, we've only used it for one weekend, but it was very spacious. Would definitely fit 3 and a big dog and more. So I still don't know backpacking. We're just going to take our 2-person this year and try to all film in, and we'll see as she grows when we have to upgrade our backpacking tent. I don't know. Like Mandy said, there's not a lot of good backpacking options for 3+ person size.
Yeah, there's kind of like one. The Big Agnes has a 4-person, but it's continuously sold out. I don't know if it's sold out right now, but and it's like $700 or something like that. Yeah.
The price point was really prohibitive for us, and especially with young kiddos. And I knew that we were just going to trash the gear. Like it was really hard to justify these big price tags. And like, yeah, you're looking at Z packs or something, and you can get the triplex. And why wouldn't you do that? I was like, because we're going to destroy that thing.
Yeah.
That was like the balance that you have to strike of like how much you're willing to spend on it versus how much weight you want to carry and versus comfort.
Yeah, and we already own a 3-person Big Agnes ultralight tent that my puppy at the time, first night in it, there was a bear outside. So this puppy just goes crazy. There's claw marks all over all the mesh, and Big Agnes repaired it. I mean, it's nice, but yeah, puppy plus baby plus $700. I'll figure it out. I don't know. But I don't think I can tarp camp, given mosquitoes and a wife who refuses and a baby who probably wouldn't handle it so well. So,
well, it sounds like there's a need. And I'm curious, Jessica, are there sort of gear libraries or sharing resources for things like tents or I mean, are you familiar with? I know you're not necessarily backpacking, but any insight to the gear question?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are sometimes there are gear libraries or places. I know that there are more companies popping up where you can check out or rent stuff for a weekend, and they have a whole kit just as a nice way to kind of explore things. But another resource I really like is there's a group on Facebook called Backpacking with Babies and Kids. And that community does a really good job of sharing all of their tips and tricks and their favorite gear and answering questions. And then companies like Morrison Outdoors makes a really cool kids infant sleep sack for camping, and they do it in a couple different sizes. But also this was a company started by a dad who just wanted to go camping with his baby, and he thought about things like, can we get through the size range for a little while before it's going to be too small. And they do things where you can, I think, go from the little Mo to the big Mo, and if you trade in your old one, they give you a discount on the new one. And then they're going to be starting a gear exchange on their website soon too. So different things there that I think there's just different opportunities to try things out. And I think it's also just important, go out and try it and know your exit plan, right? Think about it and be okay with maybe it's not going to work this time. And I think sometimes just giving yourself that room to back out if you need to, often you'll end up staying and it'll be fine, but you've made the plan for how you're going to get out. And so you're more comfortable with knowing that you can get out of things if you need to.
Great. Yeah, I was talking with some friends who go car camping a lot with their 2 kids, and they're like, about half the trips go well.
Don't let it stop you, right? Do it again. Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Like
do it. Yeah.
when you're trying to
Yeah.
when
I
you're
mean,
trying to introduce those like new foods too, right? Like, oh, they hated it the first time, but a couple times later, all of a sudden it's their favorite thing. So
yeah. Thanks for all
Well,
the
thank you
advice.
all so much. We'll have time in the conversations if you want to dive in a little bit more to with any of the folks here. But I want to mention that we are raising money for OutGrown. They are the nonprofit partner for this event, and some of you donated during registration. So as I mentioned at the start, OutGrown was created to empower families and babies and young children to get outside. And I think everything that Jessica and the organization is doing is fabulous and a lot of amazing resources. So you all raised $40 for OutGrown through your donations. So thank you. And thank you to Jessica and Mandy for sharing all of your experiences and what you're doing to help get more people outside and Mandy, get them looking good. So we're gonna transition to that, the gear giveaway. This is a picture of Mandy in bedtime with their both wearing purple rain. So Mandy also has kilts. So for the gentlemen or the small, Mandy, do you do kids kilts as well?
I do. That's what I made for bedtime. He wore a kilt the whole time on the PCT.
Yeah, fabulous. Okay, so today you'll have the opportunity to win either a child size or an adult rain purple rain adventure skirt or kilt. So I started wearing Mandy's skirts right when she started about 10 years ago. And I have to buy almost every color she comes out with because they're fabulous colors. And then you get to, to play. I love the purple that she has here. That's one of my recent favorites. But they're also incredibly comfortable. So she has a yoga style waistband that doesn't bunch up under a backpack belt. And the fabric is quick dry. It's sourced from recycled materials. And the best part, there are double pockets on each side. So that means 4 pockets for snacks, for maps, for sunscreen, for chapstick. I use all 4 pockets and love it. And the airflow and ability to pee standing up is fabulous. So my technique is use the pee style funnel and a reusable pee cloth like Kula Cloth or Wonder Woman. And you don't even have to take your pack off. It's pretty amazing. So I want to share a few words that Mandy sent me about how she approaches her work with intention. And she said, I treat my customers the way I wish to be treated. I welcome all feedback from my customers and have worked to improve my product based on their experiences. What sets me apart from bigger brands is my ability to have personal connection with my customers. I also practice intention by keeping the business small. I have a smaller environmental footprint from fabric scraps to shipping, and I source fabric that is recycled, durable, and contains no harmful chemicals, so it's good for the planet and for the people. So for today's giveaway, you'll get, like I said, a choice of a child's or adult size skirt or quilt. And so the question is more of a subjective question. So please use your chat. There's no right or wrong answers. So what I want to know is, what is the #1 reason you value the time you spend outside? Or what is the #1 reason you want your child to spend more time in nature? So again, just share your thoughts and I'll pick one response to win your choice. So take a minute to think, or maybe you already know. Like, what's the one thing that you value or why you want your child to spend more time outside? And since I already have like a million purple rain skirts, I'm obviously not going to chime in, but I'm just going to answer the question. I feel like I'm connected. I feel I can sense my place in the holistic world of environment, people, nature, biotic life. So it's just like that connection is so tangible. So yes, the awe-inspiring nature, feel my most most myself, definitely. Like, I bet Jessica, you spent a lot of time outside when you were a kid. We have the time in natural world lifts my spirits, connects me with people in the world, provides a place to play and get strong. Yes, definitely. Yeah, any other thoughts out there? And even if the purple rain skirt or kilt isn't a good choice for you, you can give it away. It's a perfect gift. So if you're thinking, I don't want to answer because I'm not going to wear it, or it's not my style, just know you'll make someone's day. I'll give you one more second to weigh in. Yeah, so Beth says, being outside gives me context of my greater place in the world. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say, Jessica, it's awe-inspiring. I think a purple rain adventure skirt might be the perfect thing for you or one of your girls. So congratulations, Jessica, on winning a purple rain adventure skirt or kilt.